Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Salam Media. It is now 17 minutes past 7 this evening. I'm your host, Takir Dawood. I'm going to be with you right through up until 9 o'clock this evening. We done a Sport Express first. Now we're going to be chatting a bit about the spirit of Mzansi and how South Africa can stand together to put our national athletes on a pedestal. But someone that helped them, Mike Sharman, the founder of Matchkit, he started a crowdfunding campaign to raise bonuses for Tatjana, Schoenmaker, and Bianca Buitendag, who achieved medals at the Olympics. Tatjana obviously broke the world record and the Olympic record, and she achieved a silver and a gold medal in the pool at the Olympics, while Bianca, on the other hand, achieved silver at the first ever surfing event at the Olympic Games. South Africa, well done. But more importantly, thanks to Mike for getting the conversation started and getting South Africa behind these girls and raising funds for them so that they can have a bonus and something to smile about other than just their medals. Let's meet the man behind the tweets and the man behind getting this entire movement started. Good evening, Mike. Thank you so much for joining me on Salam Media this evening.
Salam Takir. Lovely to join you this evening.
Man, it's always a pleasure. First up, your thoughts on the Olympics. I mean, we have to touch on this. South Africa coming back with medals, not as much as we'd have liked. I know the Springbok Sevens team obviously disappointed many of us. Different conditions at the Olympics this time. But Mike, overall, what is your thoughts on the Olympics this year from a South African perspective?
Yeah, I think we're all quite disappointed. I think if you look at the rowers, if you think at what we achieved from the IAAF league with our sprinters, obviously Wade having his really silly injury from a touch rugby perspective, and then try and get back into. He was never at the heights that he was in 2016. And I think that there was controversy around Caster and her exclusion. And I think overall, conditions were primed for probably a year prior. And that's effectively how coaches try and work with their athletes. You're working in 4-year cycles, and having that extra year was a real challenge for this year's games. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I think if we look at Tatjana and Bianca's results, they've actually put us on the world map in really spectacular fashion.
No, definitely, Mike. And I mean, Women's Day, these women have brought back silverware for South Africa, if not the only silverware for South Africa. And we just found that they weren't appreciated. And you, like any South African citizen and civilian, we all take it to the streets. And when we don't take it to the streets, we take it to the blue app.
The streets.
Yeah, you took it to Twitter and you aired your frustration. And next thing, you raised a good couple of 100,000.
Yeah, I think
chat us about that.
For me, I've been quite vocal about both Barry Hendricks and Minister Natim Tetwa, because I think that we worked with the hockey team earlier in the year prior to the Olympics, and they'd qualified for Tokyo, but the writing was on the wall that they may not actually go, because I don't know if you and your listeners remember, but in 2016, SASCOC actually prohibited the men's and women's hockey team from going to Rio, even though they'd qualified. So this year, once again, both teams had qualified as the best in Africa, best on our continent, and they still were uncertain whether they were going to be allowed to go or not. And we started a crowdfund campaign with hockey, and within a few weeks, we were generating a lot of interest, a lot of PR, a lot of media exposure. And then McFarlane came along with his microphone on carte blanche. And when you've made it onto carte blanche, you're in trouble, because you're going to have to step up to the microphone and give people an explanation. And Barry Hendricks, he sounded like the perfect president of SASCOC. He'd been an athlete, he claimed, and he said he was all for the Olympians. And if you'd qualified for the Olympic Games for South Africa, SASCOC would support you. That's a great thing to say, and it's great to pay for tickets, and it's great to pay for those cardboard beds that people had in Tokyo. But the reality is that you need money consistently over a 4 or 5 year cycle to help with the sustainability of getting to an Olympic Games. It's not just about the year of the Games, it's about the build-up, it's about the coaching, it's about participating in international leagues, because if you're a sprinter like a Kani or Wade, then ultimately you have to spend pounds, euros, and dollars to participate. If you're a swimmer, it's a dollar-based thing. It isn't just easy to get onto the plane to an Olympic Games and medal. And I think that's what we saw this year with the challenges around what we expected to medal at and what we didn't. So when I saw on Women's Day that Sascock came out saying, sorry, no bonuses, and that the only 2 medalists were women, I said, that's a little bit distasteful and that's ironic. So fortunately, that tweet garnered a lot of interest. I then had a few corporate friends, some from Easy Equities, some from private individuals, and they said, if you start something, Sharman, we'll contribute. So fortunately, we had the tech in our product, matchkit.co, and because Brian Habana is a co-founder, we used his Matchkit profile at matchkit.co/Brian Habana with a Y /donate. And anyone could donate. And we basically said we would waive the transactional fees, and all 100% of the funds raised would go to Tatjana and Bianca. And within 1 hour, we'd raised 100,000 Rand, and my phone was absolutely blowing up. I mean, I've been on Trending SA once, and I'd never seen Twitter action like that. But let me tell you, on Tuesday, the 10th of August, 2021, that will go down in a day of history when my phone, I don't know, I mean, it almost spontaneously combusted from all those mentions. And, I think because we acted so swiftly, because we acted with integrity, and because our business is dedicated to caring about athletes, better commercializing themselves, helping them with the financial acumen and all the stuff around business that they may not necessarily be the best at. And ultimately, within 24 hours, we'd raised 300,000 Rand. Then Atterbury Properties and USN had come to the party. They said they'd commit another 500 grand. And then as of yesterday, I mean, we were looking at about 1 million Rand in terms of hitting that actual number with all these parties involved to raise money for these 2 women. And I think it's really a testament to South Africans. We've been through the most. We've been through the vaccination craziness. We've been through the COVID lockdowns. We've lost sport over the last 18 months. We've had looting and all that kind of craziness. And I think South Africans were desperate for a feel-good story. And I think that's what's been the most inspiring thing for me. People that I've spoken to on African language vernacular stations, they've donated 20 Rand all the way to, some people that are MDs of business having given 50,000 Rand. And I think that just goes to the real human spirit across all racial divides, all backgrounds, all creeds. And we've got incredible people in this country, and so often we hear the poor negative stories. And I'm just proudly South African and stoked to be involved in a situation where fans, non-fans, people who are just really trying to make a living have all contributed to a cause where they feel like, hey, I'm going to put my hand up, I'm going to put my money in my wallet where my mouth is, and I'm going to contribute towards this crowdfunding initiative because these women deserve those precedented amounts that they should have received, like many others before them in many other Olympic Games before them. And just because Sascock didn't get their budgets and ducks in a row, and just because they're now scrambling and trying to find out where they can, dip into the couches and find some coins here and there, that shouldn't be the impact on the Olympians. And in the next few weeks, we've got the Paralympians, and we know they're going to make us proud. What happens with them? Where's the budget KPIs for their bonuses? And that's what I just want to challenge Sascock and the sports ministry on. Mr. Natim Tepto is always the first to go and pose at OR Tambo with a bouquet and to get the plaudits in front of the press. But where is he with his budget? Or is he just another ministry that's gone and blown cash in situations that aren't so authentic?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken the country to come together, and it's just nice to see that there's actually hope for South Africa with the citizens and the individuals out there stepping up and coming together for one common cause, and that was honoring the women that done our country proud on the global stage. But I mean, chat to us a bit about Matchkit. I mean, this is a app that will be changing the game forever for athletes that are up and coming, and for current athletes in the game that don't necessarily have access to, let's say, the resources that other more professionalized and more professional athletes have. How have you managed to find the gap in the market for this, and how did you close the gap to make sure that all these athletes that use your service get the exact same treatment as a professional athlete playing in the Springbok jersey would?
Inshallah, Takir. I mean, that's all I can say, because, we really, we found an opportunity back in 2020 at the start of lockdown, and we saw the global trends, and we saw that sport was going to be locked down. We saw that events were going to come to a halt. And I was fortunate to have a team of really good people around me, including Brian Habana. And Brian had been at the Tokyo World Cup. And his insight was that, the World Cup winning Springboks, including Sia Khaleesi, not one of them had their own website. Not one of them had their own domain. Like with Sia, there was a young kid in the States, and he was basically domain squatting on siakhaleesi.com. His agent had never bothered to register that domain. And we kind of started looking at the situation and saying, I'm sure there's a product that we could build that could help athletes that don't have developer friends, they don't have design teams. If you think about the 1% of athletes, the Serenas, the Cristianos, the Lewis Hamiltons, they all have teams behind them that are doing their PR, doing their media, doing their website, doing their social media. But for the average athlete, the 99%er, they are literally eking out an existence. They're putting bread and food on the table once a month. Some of them have to have day jobs. A lot of them are women athletes. And then when they get into their mid-20s or early 30s, they effectively end that career, and then they have to start afresh. Brian has been such a pantheon of athletes because he's managed to keep that relationship up with brands even after he's retired. And he's got really good relationships with the Oakleys, the MasterCards, the HSBCs of the world. And so many athletes don't know how to nurture those relationships. And I think what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a platform that could help athletes build a brand and then better commercialize their opportunities. So in June 2020, we launched Matchkit.co. And in Matchkit, you can literally get set up in 10 minutes. You link your Instagram account, and you can add videos of your best tries or goals or world record achievements. You can then also add your best content from social media. And it showcases like what the age is of your followers, where they're based around the world. And then you can also sell merchandise that's branded. So you can sell Mike Sharman or Takir branded merch. And if you don't have a logo, our designers can design one for you. And it's all drop shipping. So you don't even have to house those T-shirts and those caps. It just sits in the cloud. When you make the order, it delivers anywhere in the world. And we also built in a crowdfunding function, and we didn't realize how huge the crowdfunding component was going to be. But here, within 2 or 3 months of each other with hockey and now with the medal bonus, it's absolutely exploded. And for us, like, we really are invested in helping athletes generate better understanding of their financial acumen, because Sports Illustrated, they've done so many research papers, and they've seen that even when it comes to the NBA, the NFL, so many of those international athletes, they are broke within 2 to 5 years. And that's the sad case with athletes. Like, people look at them, they are worshipped for a few years, and they sit on a pedestal. But as soon as their career ends, what happens next? And when it comes to Brian, so many of his rugby contemporaries, they go from hero to zero. And there's a lot of depression, a lot of mental health, which is coming to the fore recently with Naomi Osaka, with Simone in the gymnastics. It's something that people are starting to talk about now, is like, what happens with life after athletics, life after your sport? And I think that there's a whole world of things where people go through depression and they don't know how to deal with that stuff. And we are creating education modules. We're helping work with athletes. We're looking at them to generate new ways of creating revenue, but then also to be smart about what they do with that cash. Like, don't just blow it on a fancy car or on a house. Like, you've got to think a little bit more long term, and you've got to think, do I go into media? Do I go into commentating? And I think that athletes, they are the one sector of society that has been neglected for a long time, because people just say, athletes are just like celebrities, and the reality is that celebrity can last a lot longer than athleticism can and sports can, and that's what we're committed to, is making that journey better and bringing that financial acumen to the fore for these individuals, and really like being the challenger brand for these challenger brands.
Well, we have to say thank you to your brand for doing what you're doing, because as we know, many athletes, we've seen them make it from hero to zero real quick, and It's the reality of it. It's the reality of it. Once your stardom is done on the rugby pitch or on the soccer field, just a couple of months after many athletes hang up their boots, bankruptcy, and things just go downhill from there. And with Matchkit, we hope that this can change the future in the sporting industry for the up-and-coming athletes that want to go pro, and also for the professional athletes that want to see the longevity in their career and enjoy some of their funds once they're done playing. Mike, where do I start? Thank you for what you've done for our Olympians. Thank you for getting the conversation started. You've definitely struck a nerve for many South Africans, and by striking that nerve, they've showed the spirit of Ubuntu and everything that those before us fought for the nation to come together as one. And that's what was done earlier this week, ultimately, with everybody coming together and putting our Olympians on a pedestal and giving them the recognition they deserve, and also a little bit something so that they can go home and spoil their families a bit. Mike, thank you so much for your time this evening as well. I really appreciate it. I look forward to chatting to you soon about Matchkit and everything happening in the sporting fraternity. You definitely changed the game for the better.
Let's keep catching up on those Twitter streets at Mike Sharman. Let's just keep in touch together, and all the best for your show. I really appreciate you having me, and thanks. One love to your listeners who have contributed or participated in this process. I really appreciate it.
Most definitely. It's only a pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much. Have a good evening further until we chat again.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
You too. That was Mike Sharman, the founder of Matchkit, who recently found themselves trending on Twitter, where he's asked what happened to the funding and why is there no financial remuneration for our Olympian athletes that have brought back medals for the country. By doing this, they then raised so much money for Tatjana Schoenmaker and Bianca Buitendag, where they now have something to take home other than just the Olympic medals. An amazing achievement by Mike and his team, and also such a nice feeling for South Africans, spreading that spirit of Ubuntu, coming together and putting the Olympians on a pedestal. Well, that was the second segment of the show, done and dusted. Next up, we're going to be chatting to three-time South African BMX champion, Bianca Massetti. She's going to be telling us a bit more about what it takes to get out on two wheels and strut your stuff. Stay tuned to Salam Media. We're back after the break, chatting to our South African BMX champion.